conduct this beautiful talk tonight. Wishing for all of us a great moment of learning and guidance, and so be it. So we are thankful for our dear Wendell for continue with his work, even though he's not feeling so well. So not throwing him on the bus, but letting us know that when we are called to work, when we are called to do goodness, guess what? We find challenges, right? We find the difficulties of life. But what a great topic to give continuation to this beautiful day that we had, as we mentioned earlier today, of Spiritism in the United States, since we are also the symposium also still going on. But it is very good to hear and learn about Spiritism and progress of humanity. Wendell, please.
Okay. So thank you, Leo. Thank you, SSB, for having me back. Good afternoon, everybody. Here I am again with the blessing to be with you to talk about the wonderful teachings and principles of Spiritism, which help us to find, to better understand Jesus' message in order to find our way to evolution and happiness. As Leo said, I'm not in my best condition today, so I ask you to bear with me, with my voice, with my difficult sometimes to reason and express myself as well. But I'm sure that I will be assisted here because it's not a work for myself, but also of the spirituality as well. So today we're going to talk about Spiritism and progress of humanity, right? Let's discuss a little bit if humanity has progress so far, if humanity is still progressing, and if there is any relation between Spiritism and progress of humanity. As my source of research for today, I looked at the Spirit's book, The Gospel According to Spiritism, and the books Thought and Life by Chico Xavier and Emmanuel, O Progresso in Portuguese, in English should be Progress by Leon Denis, and Roteiro, which should be Guideline by Chico Xavier and Emmanuel. So, what is progress? I decided to start bringing these two concepts of progress according to Collins Dictionary and Cambridge Dictionary. The Collins Dictionary brings progress as the process of gradually improving or getting nearer to achieving or completing something. The Cambridge Dictionary defines progress as the process of changing or developing towards an improved situation or condition, right? So it's like we have two stages, stage A and stage B, one less improved than other. And we are progressing when we are moving from stage A to stage B, right? I'm sure that if I ask you guys some example of any progress that you may have achieved in your life, it would be very easy to give me, right? If I could talk about myself, I would say that since I got here in the US 2.5 years ago, I may have some progress in my communication skills in English. I know there's a long way ahead, but I think I could say that I have walked some steps until here, right? And I think it wouldn't be difficult for you to give me some example of progress in your individual life, right? But progress is not achieved only individually. We can also achieve progress collectively, right? In a sense that can interest not only to a single individual, but to a whole community or the whole society, right? To give you an example of collective progress in the technological way, we could talk about the internet. Until 1992, a little bit more than 30 years ago, we had never heard about the internet. And now, I don't know if we could imagine life without the internet, right? Because of the internet, we are being able to watch today's symposium that is happening right now, and some people are being able to watch us from home right now through the internet, right? Well, the two examples I gave you are related to the material progress, right? And what about spiritual progress, moral progress? In the book, O Progresso, I don't think it was already translated to English, which is a shame because it's a great book. But in the book, O Progresso would be progress in English. Leon Denis says, I had to translate myself. Progress is the aspiration for the better, the beauty, the good. Is the proof of the existence within us of a higher principle, something grand, almost divine, that guides us toward greater destinies, always propelling us forward in the realms of thought and consciousness. So, according to Leon Denis, we would be naturally directed to growth and improvement because of something higher within us, something that guides us in the direction of better ideas, better understanding, and better awareness regarding what is good, beauty, and true. At the same time that Leon Denis acknowledged that progress is a natural law, he says in the book that we are free beings, and because of that, it's up to us when we're gonna progress, right? He doesn't agree with the idea of the fatality of progress, right? He says that physically we may progress passively by the force of nature, like a plant, but spiritually and morally, our progress depends on our action and our willing. So we evolve by ourselves actively, right? Not passively. And why do we have to progress? Aren't we created already by God in a state of evolution that is it enough? It's enough? Do we have to progress somehow? And that's what Kardec asks on question 115 of the Spirit's book. Have some spirits been created good and others evil? And the answer was, God has created all spirits simple and ignorant. It is without knowledge. God has given each of them a mission. It is aimed at enlightening them and progressively leading them toward perfection through knowledge of the truth in order to draw them near to God. I don't know if you agree with me, but it looks like a little bit with the concept of progress that Leon Denis brought, right? So there's no such privilege in creation, right? We all are created spirits simple and ignorant. Sorry. Simplicity and ignorance are our starting point, and perfection is our finish line, right? And what it is between? What are we after when we are not simple and ignorant, but when we are yet not perfect? On question 97, Kardec asks, are there a set number of orders or degrees of purification among spirits? And the answer was, the number is unlimited because there's no line of demarcation that acts as a barrier between each order. Thus, the divisions may be multiplied or decreased at will. However, if we consider their general characteristics, we may reduce them to three principal orders, which are, in the first order, we may put those who have already reached perfection, the pure spirits. In the second order are those who have reached the middle of the scale. Their main concern is the desire to do good. In the third order are those who are toward the bottom of the scale, the imperfect spirits. These are characterized by ignorance, the desire for evil, and all the passions that delay their advancement. The first time I read this question, I started to wonder in which order I can fit, right? But I must confess that it's not possible sometimes to realize where we fit with such little information, right? So when I reached the questions 100 to 113, I had some more details which helped me to realize where I fit. So if you want to do this exercise of classifying yourselves in one of these three orders, exercise which I must warn you can be either uplifting or frustrating, right? So go ahead and read questions 100 to 113 of the Spirit's book as we don't have much time to develop all these ideas here. Okay? So, we used to say that to fly toward our progress, we need two kinds of wings, the intellectual wing and the moral wing. And here it's important clarifying that when we say intellectual, we are not referring to intellectualism in the academic sense. Okay, we are not talking about getting a master's degree or a PhD or something like that. Intellectual progress means the development of our intelligence. And intelligence is an attribute of all spirits. All of us spirits have the attribute of intelligence, and that is what makes us different from other beings of creation, right? So that's what Emmanuel says about that on chapter 4 of the book Thought and Life by Chico Xavier. I have already said that two wings will lead the human spirit to the presence of God. One is called love, the other wisdom. Through love, we give value to life. Through wisdom, we are valued by life. Hence the imperative that intelligence and kindness march together. So, by the intellectual wing, Emmanuel very poetically refers to wisdom and intelligence. And by the moral wing, he refers to love and kindness. And in the end, he highlights the importance or the expectation that both of these wings be developed at the same rate, right? And it makes some sense because let's think about. I'm not sure about that because I've never been very good in physics, but I think that for a plane to be able to fly, its two wings have to be of the same size and dimensions, right? Otherwise, it won't be possible for it to fly. But unfortunately, that's not how it happens. I'm sorry, Leo. I was pushing. It's not how it happens, right? We do not usually develop the moral aspect of progress at the same rate as we develop the intellectual aspect of progress, at least not in the same reincarnation, right? That's the answer that Kardec got from the question 7-8 of the Spirit's book. Does moral progress always follow intellectual progress? And the answer is no. The answer is it is its consequence, but it does not always follow it immediately, right? To better understand this answer, let's break it down in two parts. The first one is it is its consequence, meaning that moral progress is a consequence of intellectual progress, right? And Kardec asked it on question 788, how can intellectual progress lead to moral progress? The answer is by making good and evil understandable, for then humans can choose between them two. The development of free will follows the development of intelligence and increases the responsibility of humans for their acts, right? So we have free will, the faculty of choosing between two or among several choices, right? We are never forced to go in any direction. It's always and completely our call, right? Until we know which one is the best, it's the right direction, by the comprehension of good and evil, right and wrong, how are we supposed to make a good use, a proper use of our free will? It's interesting because I was watching to the symposium some minutes ago, and there was a question addressed to a young guy called Gabriel. How is the best way to exercise our free will, right? And here we have one suggestion, right? Because when progress, intellectual progress, make us capable of deciding what is the right way, the right direction, it means intellectual progress, right? When we are able to make good use, proper use of our free will, it means that we have reached intellectual progress. When we effectively make good use of our free will by taking the right direction, it means that we have reached moral progress, right? That's the relation between intellectual progress and moral progress. And the second part is it does not always follow it immediately, right? And let's read Kardec's comment on question 785. There are two kinds of progress that mutually support each other, but which do not proceed in tandem: intellectual progress and moral progress. Throughout this century, intellectual progress among civilized cultures has received all the stimuli it could desire and has reached an unprecedented level. Moral progress, moral progress has also occurred, although not at the same rate, right? Uh, and why is that? Why do not we develop the two wings at the same time? Maybe because when we dedicate our incarnation to intellectuality, this intellectuality can be a good environment to the development of a certain level of vanity and excessive pride, right? An example here. One can look around and realize that in comparison to the majority of people in the context of their community, of their society, they are more intellectualized or more intelligent than others, right? These can lead them to the conclusion that they are superior than these other people, right? And this circumstance can prevent them from developing humility. And guess what? Without humility, there's no moral progress. Because humility is itself a sign of moral progress, right? Let's think about Jesus. Jesus is the level, the model of moral progress that God expects us to achieve, right? If you think about Jesus' passage through this planet, it was all about humility. The way he was born in a throne to the way he was killed on a cross, right? And this message was not in vain, right? Because everything Jesus did, Jesus said, Jesus lived, every single circumstance of Jesus' passage through this planet was in order to teach us something. It has a reason, right? We cannot waste a single word, a single jest, a single circumstance, because Jesus did not have to come here to learn something or to expiate or to evolve. He had nothing else to evolve here. So he came here to teach us several things. So we have to realize that the message about his humility is one of the most important of his passage here, right? So there's no moral progress without humility, because humility is not only the way to achieve moral progress, but it's a sign of this achievement, right? Uh, okay, so now that we know what progress is, that there is individual progress and collective progress, and an intellectual aspect and a moral aspect of progress, uh, I ask you guys, is humanity progressing? Because we spiritists, we have talked a lot about the planetary transition, right? Meaning that planet Earth would be transitioning from a category of world of trials and expiations to the category of regenerative world, right? And how can it happen? First, we need to understand what Jesus meant by saying, "There are many dwellings in my Father's house," which we can find in the Gospel of John, chapter 14, verses 2. And I must tell you that this is one of the statements that before being acquainted with Spiritism, I used to hear and read, and I had no idea what it was talking about. And no one was capable to explain to me. So I just let it go, right? Until I read the question 55 of the Spirit's book, where Kardec asks, "Are all the globes spinning through space inhabited?" And the answer was yes. And contrary to what earthlings believe, they themselves are far from being first in intelligence, goodness, and perfection. Nevertheless, there are individuals who think they know the whole truth of the matter and imagine that this little planet is the only one privileged enough to be inhabited by reasoning beings. Pride and vanity. They fancy that God has created the universe only for earthlings. right? So spirits told Kardec not only that planet Earth is not the only one inhabited in the universe, but also that there are many other planets which are superior, more evolved than planet Earth, right? This answer led Kardec to question 56. Is the physical composition of all the different globes the same? And the answer was no, they do not resemble one another at all. And let's jump straight to the comment to this item 3 of the chapter 3. There are many dwellings in my Father's house of the gospel according to Spiritism. From the teaching given by the spirits, one comes to understand that the various worlds are in conditions very different from one another as to the degree of advancement or the lower order status of their inhabitants. Among them are those whose inhabitants are physically and morally even less evolved than those of Earth. Others' inhabitants are of the same level, whereas others are more highly evolved to differing degrees in every respect. Right? So now we know that every globe in space are inhabited. There are different categories of globes referring to physical and moral characteristics, right? There are some other worlds that where the characteristics are less evolved than ours. There are the ones who are in the same level of ours, and there are the ones which are more evolved than ours. And which categories are those, right? Uh, is there any way that we can know uh, the level that Earth is in comparison to other planets? Right. Well, in the same chapter 3, we're gonna find this classification, right? According to what we are able to know, according to what we are able to understand right now. Because Kardec says that there's no limit for progress and evolution, that we are constantly progressing and evolving, right? So when we get here the lowest level and the highest level, it doesn't mean that there's no level above this, right? But according to what we are able to understand now, this is the classification that the Gospel according to Spiritism brings. So we have the primitive words, the words of trial and expiation, the regenerative words, the blissful or happy words, and the divine words. Right? So we are in this second category, words of trial and expiations. And as we are talking here about the possibility, right, of the planet Earth being transitioning between a word of trial and expiation to a regenerative word, let's talk a little bit about their characteristics. So words of trial and expiation, which we can find on item 13 of the chapter 3. What more can I tell you about words of expiation than what you already know, since all you have to do is consider the earth that you inhabit. The superior intelligence of a large number of its inhabitants indicates that it is not a primitive world meant to the incarnation of spirits who have just left the hands of the Creator. The innate qualities they bring with them are proof that they have already lived and achieved a certain amount of progress. However, the numerous vices to which they are inclined are also an indication of great moral imperfection. This is why God has placed them on an ungrateful earth, so that they may expiate their wrongs through pain-filled labor and the miseries of life until they have merited going to a happier world. Right? So we are not primitive worlds. As I said, we are in the second categories. So we are not destined to spirits that have been just created by God. We are not destined to the spiritual infancy of spirits, right? Our spiritual infancy, we live in primitive worlds, right? So here in this planet, we have already achieved a certain amount of progress, although we are still inclined to great moral imperfection. And because of that, we have to face all the trials and expiations that we see around us, right? In order to have the merit to go to a superior world. And the next one is regenerative words. Item 17. Regenerative words serve as a transition between words of expiation and words of bliss. The repentant soul finds peace and repose on them, and ends up purifying itself. Of course, on such words, humans are still subject to the laws that govern matter. Their humanity still experiences your sensations and desires, but it's free of the murder passions that enslave you. On regenerative words, there is no longer the pride that renders your heart silent, the envy that tortures it, and the hatred that suffocates it. The word love is written on every brow. A perfect equity governs social relationships, and all acknowledge God, endeavoring to evolve toward Him by following His laws. So, these are the characteristics of the category of word that we are supposed to be about to reach, right? Uh, it's a word of transition, right, between our category and the follower. Uh, we are going to find peace and repose after everything that we are facing here now. We really need peace and repose, right? I don't know if you go along with me, but I think we need peace and repose. We are going to be still subject to laws that govern matter, but we are be more able to act over it. We have more autonomy to act over the influence of matter, right? And there will be no envy, no pride. We will have a better comprehension about God, and we are going to use it in favor of our evolution, right? So, according to this, the comprehension of these characteristics, some people doubt that Earth is transitioning to a world of regeneration, right? And here are the arguments: persistent violence and conflict, war, terrorism, crime. Uh, this this circumstance would show that we are still guided by aggression and self-interest rather than peace and cooperation. Economic inequality, which according to some has grown and should be the opposite. If we were really progressing, disparities between rich and poor should be decreasing and not increasing, as they think it is happening. Environmental degradation, right? The ongoing destruction of environment through deforestation, climate change, pollution would be an evidence of our failure to act with wisdom and responsibility toward our planet. Corruption and greed. We are still facing high levels of corruption in governments, corporations, and institutions, which would show our lack of sense of solidarity and charity. Social injustice and discrimination. And then they mention racism and sexism and so many other kinds of discrimination, which shows our lack of moral advancement in terms of equality and justice. Moral relativism. Some say that there has been an increasing relativism of core ethical principles. People are saying that no, it's not like this. We can see it in a different way, right? And this can lead us to moral confusion instead of evolution. And historical cycles of decline. They say that historically, there have always been cycles of perceived moral progress followed by collapse and decline, right? And this would show that we haven't yet entered in a real state of evolution. On the other hand, there are some with a more optimistic perspective, right? And they believe that Earth is transitioning, and it's all a matter of comparison with the past. If we look into the past and compare it to the present, we will notice, we will realize how much we have progressed and how much we are still progressing. And here are the arguments. development of human laws. And here I need to cheat because there are, maybe I won't remember. So replacement of law or retaliation. Can we imagine that at some point of society, one would be allowed to do to others exactly the same thing that they did to them. If Johnny cut one of my fingers, I'd be allowed to cut one of hers, right? It's not like that anymore, thank God. Abolition of slavery, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, recognition of social rights, universalization of the right to vote, laws that prevent from discrimination related to gender, race, and religion, and freedom of thinking and expression, right? All of this represents the development of human laws, which represents how we have achieved some progress in these areas. Advances in humanitarianism. Uh, Humanitarian organizations like UNICEF, Doctors Without Borders, Red Cross, and so many others would be an evidence of the increasing of our sense of compassion and global responsibility. Right? International organizations against war. They say that organizations like the United Nations would have influenced society, and now, although the ongoing conflicts happening, uh, the acceptance of society related to war is different. I don't know. I wasn't there during the First and Second War, at least not this character, right? Maybe in my spirit, yes, but I don't know. But they say that today, nowadays, there is a more sense of indignation related to war than it used to be before. Environmental awareness. They say that in spite of the environmental degradation that is still happening, there has been a more sense of awareness and action around issues like climate change, conservation, and sustainability, which shows that we have progress in this aspect as well. Technological advancements for good. Technology has been used for moral purpose, like the improvement of education, healthcare, and accessibility. I don't know when we start to talk about accessibility, but today is a reality, right? And philosophical and ethical progress. They say that now we have included topics like empathy, individual rights, and global ethics in the agenda. And now we are talking about that. We didn't talk about that in the past, right? So let's read what Kardec said about this in the second part of the comment on question 785 of the Spirit's book. If we compare the social customs of a few centuries ago with those of today, just a second. If we compare the social customs of a few centuries ago with those of today, we have to be blind to deny that there has been progress. Then, why should the ascendant march of morality be interrupted any more than that of intelligence? Why should there not be as great a difference in morality between the 19th and 24th centuries as there has been between the morality of the 14th and 19th? To doubt this would be to assume that humanity has reached the apogee of perfection, which is absurd, or that it is not morally perfectible, which has been disproved by experience. Right? So according to Kardec, there has been progress, and we are still progressing. And if we think about everything that that are happening around us, has already happened before. There's nothing new, right? And the fact that we are so sensitive to these events right now, the fact that these events sound and look so absurd and so negative to us, is a sign that we have progress, that we don't see things as we used to see before, right? Because before, we didn't even care about them. And now we are so sensitive, right? We are so alarmed with everything that is happening, right? I will give you two examples. About 2,000 years ago, we used to, and by we used to, I am considering that we are spirits that have lived here before in other times, right? Because it's very unlikely that this is our first time living on Earth, right? Unless we have been exiled from other planets or that we are here in some mission, right? But it's very likely that we have lived other times as spirits here in the planet. So about 2,000 years ago, we used to fill a whole arena to watch people being killed. And we were entertained by that, right? Can you imagine something like that happening today? At least around us here or among people that you know? I don't think so, right? The second example, and for this, we don't have to go very far in the past. But if we look back less than 200 years ago, 1865 in the US, 1888 in Brazil, it was not only acceptable, but part of common sense and legally authorized to consider someone inferior to the point of enslaving them because of the skin color. Right? So, of course, that nowadays we still have to face racism, right? Let's not be naive, but I'm talking about another level. I'm talking about slavery, right? So, I think that there's no way to deny that all the progress that we have reached so far. Let's move on to question 783. Does the perfecting of humankind always follow a slow progressive march? And the answer is, there is the regular slow progress that results from the force of things. However, when a culture does not advance quickly enough, then from time to time, God causes a physical or moral jolt that transforms it. So when we look at all these natural events happening now, pandemic, natural disasters, and catastrophes, we must remember some of God's attributes as we learn in Spiritism, among which all powerful and supremely just and good, right? And we must remember that God's providence is uninterrupted, meaning that God can never lose track of our needs. So, what does it mean that everything is according to natural laws, right? On this question, Kardec comments, humans cannot remain forever in ignorance, since they must reach the goal set by providence. They are enlightened by the force of circumstance. Moral revolutions, like social revolutions, creep into people's ideas little by little. They germinate for centuries and suddenly burst forth, overthrowing the crumbling edifice of the past, which is no longer in accord with new needs and new aspirations. So it's a matter of time. Although Leon Denis acknowledged that it's up to us, that we are free beings, that we have free will, going against progress causes some consequences. And our limit to face this consequence, our tolerance to face this consequence has a limit, right? Uh, let's think about the same situation. Let's imagine that I am addicted to smoking, right? And because of that, I have developed Iceland disease. Because of this disease, I feel pain, right? But at the same time, I can't quit smoking. I am dealing with my pain and my smoking, right? It's going to be necessary that this pain, it's stronger than the pleasure that I feel smoking for me to quit smoking, right? So that's the idea here. Sometimes we need to face all these things happening, right, to understand that we need to go a different path, a different route, right? Because we can't stand it anymore, right? So, yes, I have a comment, but let's read question 784. Humankind's perversity is very great. Doesn't it seem like humans are regressing instead of progressing, at least from a moral point of view? And the answer was, you're mistaken. Observe the whole closely, and you will see that they are advancing because they have a better understanding of what evil is, leading them day by day to reform their abuses. The excess of evil will make them understand the need for the good and for reforms. That reminds me the parable of the wheat and the chaff of the of or the weeds, as you can call, right? When the servant asks the Lord, Lord, there are some weeds. Should I cut them off? And the Lord says, no, not yet, because you may uh, bring the wheat together, right? Let's wait for them to grow, and we can tell apart, right? It's just like what is happening now, right? We need sometimes it's necessary, many on times on transition like this, it's necessary that the evil appear to be highlighted, and then we can safely take them off, right, from the plantation of our life, and then give some space for the wheat to grow safely. Uh, okay, let's move on to the last part of our talk: influence of Spiritism in the progress of humanity. Kardec asks on question 799. In what way can Spiritism contribute to progress? By destroying materialism, one of the sources of society, it enables people to comprehend where their true interests lie. Since the future life is no longer viewed by doubt, men and women will better understand that they can ensure their future based on the present. Destroying the prejudice of sect, caste, and color, Spiritism teaches them about the great solidarity that must unite them as brothers and sisters. So when Spiritism teaches principles like uh, our immortality as spirits, the law of cause and effect, of action and reaction, as you want to know, as you want to call, reincarnation, it it changes our mindset in the way that now we know that there will be a future, right? And we need to care about what we do now, because there will be future consequences, right? So we don't act like they're not gonna be tomorrow, right? So maybe we are not acting like this yet because of a total comprehension, because of love, because I understand it. But at least I'm acting like this because I'm afraid of the future, right? At some point, it is a level of progress, right? Let's read these comments from Kardec on question 982. Belief in Spiritism aids our self improvement by ensuring our ideas regarding certain points about the future. It hastens the advancement of individuals and the masses because it enables us to ascertain what we will be someday, making making it a support and a light to guide us. Spiritism teaches us to bear our trials with patience and resignation, and turns us away from doing things that might delay our future happiness. Through its teachings, Spiritism contributes to our future joys. But it has never stated that we may not attain that happiness without it. And I want to highlight this final here, because Kardec never said that without Spiritism there's no progress, right? He never said out of Spiritism there's no progress. Out of love, out of charity, there's no progress. And Spiritism can help us to find love and charity, but it's not a guarantee, right? There are so many people that has no idea, have never heard about Spiritism, and are much more evolved than us, right? So we have to be careful. I used to say that, and maybe some of you guys have already heard me saying that in some of our studying groups. But I used to say that we spiritists must be careful about vanity and pride of being spiritists. Because spiritism is now as the doctrine of knowledge, of truth, and reason. And we may uh, run the risk of looking at our neighbors who are not spiritists and find themselves inferior than us, which is not true, right? Because knowledge, we can have all knowledge about spiritism that is possible, and not using them in favor of our progress and our evolution, right? So when we think about that proverb, I'm not sure who said it for the first time, but I know it got popular by being said by Spider-Man. So it is, with great power comes great responsibility, right? And we could replace power by knowledge here and say, with great knowledge comes great responsibility. Because in the end of the day, there's nothing more powerful than knowledge, right? And the more knowledge, mainly about spiritism, we have, the more God expects from us, right? And in the book Roteiro or Guideline, Emmanuel says the following on question 38. By combating vices and encouraging the development of virtues, Spiritism offers the means to influence the progress of humanity, promoting an era of social and moral renewal. For the Spirit's doctrine is, above all, a liberating process for consciences, so that the vision of men may reach higher horizons. Talking about me, the sensation is that we, when we get to know about spiritism, is there, it happens an expansion of horizons, and we start to see further, right? So that's the way we can use spiritism in order to improve our progress, right? But let's not think that there is a guarantee that because we are spirits, because we are attending to studying group, because we go to the lectures, we take passes, and we take the fluidic water, it's all set, because it's not, right? So to call it quits, as a homework, I brought 4 questions for our reflection at home, right? Here they are. So far, have you achieved any progress in this current reincarnation? What are you doing in order to increase your moral progress? What is your contribution to the progress of humanity? And have the Spiritist teachings helped you achieve any level of progress? So let's think about it. So guys, that's what I had to talk about you today. I hope this talk can be a little bit uplifting, right? Because when we think about the moment we are living, sometimes we tend to go to be part of this, I don't know how to say in English, psychosphere? Is it okay? Mm-hmm. Okay, we can start making part of this psychosphere, and when we see there's no hope, there's nothing, right? So let's not waste all the blessings that this beautiful doctrine brings us every day, and let's make the most of it in order to use it to improve our progress and to turn us capable to help the progress of our planet, in order to, in the future, have the merit to be living in a world of regeneration. Okay, thank you very much. Yes. Thank you.
So we'll take that. I have one question from the web. But if when we ask the question here, I'll put the one on.
You need the microwave.
Yes.
Stop sharing. Very well.
So when they ask if anyone have a question, I'm just going to ask you to repeat it over here. It's up to you guys. Anyone?
That was a great talk, well organized.
Thank you, Miss Paula.
We have made progress in not putting people in the arena, but we're still putting bulls in the arena. So we know we're still a work in progress. My question, as I was thinking during your speaking, is the relationship between the individual's progress and the society they're living in. Back when I was a hippie, there was an interesting story about the 100th monkey. That by the time the 100th monkey figured out how to peel the sweet potato, all the monkeys started doing it. So I think there's a complex relationship between you and your culture or your society. Because as some children mature, when they go to college, they may find they want to move. So not like in this country, there's so many choices with all the states. Somewhere that fits more who they're becoming. And we see different rates of progress within any culture. So I'm just curious about how the individual and the group or society moves.
So let's try to summarize Miss Paula's question. It's about our moving in society, right? According to different levels of progress that we are able to perceive.
And who influences who?
Who is influencing who? Well, I think that the progress of our society is a reflection of our individual progress, right? Of the progress that each individual that are part of the society, right? And about the influence, influence, I think that we can influence for the good and for the bad. Depends on the tendency of the one who are receiving the influence. And I think that we have some more facility to be influenced according to the level of progress that we have already achieved, right? If I am in a certain level of progress and you act in a way that it's according to this progress, you would be more able to influence me than someone else, right? But I think that this influence happens in both ways, right? I think that as society is the level of progress of a certain society is a result of the level of society of each component of it. I think that we also got influenced by the whole, right? That's why I think talking about the moving that you talked about, that we tend to look for the environment that that we think we fit better, right? According to our beliefs, and that's at some point why we sometimes we are not able to move. We don't have the choice, right? And we feel uncomfortable most of time because we don't go along with what's happening around, right? So, and that makes me think about our responsibility, right? Because talking about influence, because in this era of influencers, digital influencers, right? Even if are not a digital influencer, we have people that admire us, that likes us, and look at us and think, oh, I'd like to be this person, or I'd like to be something like them, right? And at some point, we are influencing these people. So that's why we live in society, right? We don't live by ourselves. We are not alone. So we have to think about that and being an example, not only pretend that we are that thing, but acting that way, right, in order to influence people for the better, the most possible. Thank you, Miss Paula.
It's interesting because this question has something to do with what I hope with this question as well, Robert can get some, because it goes hand in hand to what he's asking over here in terms of the progress. You may want to read and kind of if you want to make a comment on it, or if you're.
Well, how might spiritual societal progress relate to philosopher Hegel's term zeitgeist or spirit of the age? Wow, Robert, come on. I'm sorry, man. I don't know how to answer that.
So, an example that I would give is that the spirit of the age, for example, the new age that Paula mentioned, right? The hippies, they were the spirit of the age. That is an example of it and how one influenced the other. So that's why I said it kind of like it is an example of it, and you kind of answer it. So I don't know if you have anything to say, because actually the question says, how might spiritual side progress relate to the philosopher? So I don't know if you.
No, I wouldn't there. I'm sorry,
Okay.
Robert. I wouldn't there.
But thank you for the question. I was just.
Thank you, Robert.
We'll just let him know that we'll answer it some other time. Anyone else? I have one, and you may repeat there. So, according to question 783, if I remember correctly, there is a limit to when we do not want to evolve. And God sort of pushes us to it, right? Um, what is we mentioned there are cataclysms, there are certain things that may happen on Earth. But what happens when we don't comply with the changes of the environment? For example, here on Earth, when we finally get to the stage of a planet of um, um, a different planet, regeneration. Thank you, I forgot the term. What would happen to a person or a group of people?
Leo's question is regarding to question 783 of the Spirit's book, when they say that when our march of progress is not according to God willing, he let that some happenings kind of makes it faster, right? Moral and physically speaking. And then what would happen to the spirits that don't follow the progress of the environmental? Well, they will have to lead to go to be sent away of the planet, right? As it happened in Capella. We have this book. I'm not sure if we have it in English, but in Portuguese is Exilados de Capella. It's the latest from Capella about spirits. Capella is a planet that was facing the same time that Earth is facing right now, this transition time, right? And there was some spirits from Capella who have progressed in the intellectual aspect, but not in the moral aspect, right? And the planet transitioned. The transition was implemented, right? Because we can pause the evolution, but we can't stop it. It's a natural law, right? There is a question in the Spirit's book about that. So when the planet is transition and the transition happens and we are not according to the new characteristics of the new category of the planet, we have to move to a planet according to our level, right? That's what happened to the inhabitants of Capella. They were intellectually evolved, but not morally. So they were sent to Earth to help in the intellectual development of planet Earth, right? That's what they say about the spirits that were living in Egypt and helped to build the pyramids and etc., right? They brought so much knowledge, intellectual knowledge, but they didn't have moral prowess, right? That's why they were not anymore um, uh, in accordance uh, to the level of evolution of Capella, but they were, morally speaking, in accordance to the level of evolution of Earth, right? That what happened. We cannot fight against God, right? Although God gives us the free will, we have to understand that we exercise our free will and it has consequences to us individually, right? But there is a higher purpose behind God's will, and we can go against it. So when we don't go uh, along with the level of evolution of our progress, we have to move away. So that's what we think nowadays, what we say nowadays about Earth. If Earth is really transitioning, and we don't know when, right? We talk too much about that when we remember Chico Xavier talking about the limit date, right? That there are several videos on YouTube about that, right? Talking about how we received the chance from spirituality of 50 years, right? 50 years from 1969 to 2019. If during these 50 years we wouldn't declare a third war that could destroy the planet, we could go on our process of transition. So we believe that we uh, uh, are living this process now. But when it's going to finish, we don't know, right? But when it is implemented, when Earth is already a planet of regeneration, spirits who are not according to this level of evolution will have to move away. Okay, Agnes?
Um, this idea of the society evolution, right? And society progress and individual progress. What do you think about, um, I guess this is one idea, I thought it came to mind, that this regeneration description, or like that you showed there, what it is, the planet of expiation description and the regeneration. If you would take those characteristics and think of individual, right, your individual feeling or behavior, would that maybe be the progress that we are seeing? That you actually, there are more, I guess, um, there are more individuals thinking that way than we had in the past, and that's maybe the type of progress that we are seeing. So that the majority of inhabitants would be having that type of thought and behavior, and the others that as they don't evolve, they're sent elsewhere, or the peer pressure that we know happens would maybe force them into behaving in a certain way.
So
I don't think it's a question.
your question is if I believe that nowadays on Earth there are more spirits according to the characteristics of a world of regeneration of a trials and expiation.
Not that there are more, but that the progress may be that way.
Mhm.
That there are going to be more spirits with those characteristics and will kind of bring the.
Well, I wouldn't say, I wouldn't know in terms of statistic, but what I can see is that good news have not the same space that bad news, so I think that there are so much good things happening, and it's not shown. So I think that I don't know if nowadays we can think that there are more spirits according to the characteristics of regeneration word. Personally, I think that if we have to move to transition today, it wouldn't be possible, right? I don't see it happening. But we have to see that our conception and our comprehension of time is different from the spiritual plane, right? And we tend to think in accordance to the amount of time that we are living in this reincarnation, right? Which is nothing, right? So I don't know what is much, what is not much, what is a long time, what is a long time. But I think that we are on the way, right? And I think that's what people, as I said, what people that argue that we are transitioning say is that I think it's good looking in the past. I think it's uplifting looking in the past and see how much you have evolved, because, okay, as I said before about my English communication skills, right? I know there's a long way ahead, but I have to look back and see how I used to be and how I am now, right? I think it's very uplifting, this. I don't even know if I'm answering your question, but yeah, I don't know. I believe that we are walking, we are going forward. We are not uh, talking about regressing. It's not possible to regress, right? There is that question that we read here, but there's some other questions in the Spirit's book that said expressively there's no possibility to regress. What can happen is that we can pause our progression, right? not going forward, but we cannot go back, right? This is very uplifting, right? And I couldn't even say that nowadays Earth is paused. The evolution on Earth is paused. I don't think so. I think it's happening every time, every day, right? But we are so focused in all these bad events occurring around us, right? They have so much agenda and they have so much space on news that maybe we don't have time to think about what's good, what's happening in good, you know? And there is, and talking about that, there is a website called Good News on YouTube. I think you have heard about it. And it's great because every week you can see you can watch a movie a video and see how many good things are happening around the world and you don't even imagine, you know. So I think that we have to think about ourselves, right? Our responsibility. Look back and see how much we have progressed. Not letting that our conscience to be disguised in the way of, oh, I'm good, I'm perfect, I think I'm ready to go to the regenerate. No, we have to identify the negative traits of our personality. This is our fight, right? This is what we have to worry about. If the words it's progressing or not, it's not only about me, about my willing, but I have to do my part regarding my individual progress and regarding my responsibility with the collective progress. Right? I hope I have at some point or answer your question. Yes, Leonie.
Yeah, adding to this comment, I think something useful to think is that everybody is progressing in a different rhythm. Nobody is like, I can make a progress today and then next year, but then not that I don't that I regress, but maybe I make some, mistakes, and then I detain my progress, right? And then other people that were, let's compare with me, like in the back, all of a sudden they make a huge, you know, development,
Mm-hmm.
spiritually speaking. And then I think the whole mankind is like this, like people used to think like this in a certain country and different in others. And then those people die, but then the kids come and start something different. So you see, like you go on the internet and you see Alice, you see Luluzinha, you see Teodoro, Teófilo, I don't remember the name of the boy. You see, my God, these kids are so developed. So they are influencing their family,
Mm-hmm.
they are influencing their school, they are being like huge. Everybody's like, what is gonna be of these little human beings? Because they are, they are pointing, they're showing another direction to everybody. Like in the way they express themselves, they are intelligent, they are vivacious, they are, you feel like it's a mini adult. Some people are mean and say, "Oh, it's the parents are pushing." No, no, you cannot do anything to a kid. Like in terms of, oh, Wendell, you are gonna act like this if you're 5. You're not, because it's gonna show. Maybe you're gonna know some things by heart, but then you're gonna trip, and I'm gonna know that you just learned that by heart because your mother told you to say that. And I think if you talk about society, so you see people nowadays that many people say that the umbral is empty because many people are on the world right now that are so mean, right? But then you see people recovering, people, getting better, realizing, oh my God, what a mistake, I shouldn't do that. So, so I think it doesn't go on a line, it goes like up and down, up and down, up and down until, what I mean, as humanity,
Yeah.
And of course, naturally, some people are going to be behind,
Yeah.
because people don't think the same. We are not the same. We're not equal. We are individuals. So, I think you can. It would be natural, but at the same time, in general, as you said, you go to the you go to the website of Good News and you say, my God, how many wonderful things, right?
Yeah, and thank you, Dione. And Leon Denis talks about these cyclical errors. He mentions that progress is like the ocean, right? It goes up and down, and he mentions that we, at the same time that we have the medieval times, then we have the Illuminism, and then we have, sometimes that look more troubled, but it's just part of the process, right? It's great you talking about the children, because in children and young people, because that's the best way that we look at someone and realize that, yeah, we are different. Society is different right now. The way they think, the way they act, regarding to anything, regarding to the difference, to tolerance, regarding to death, talking about death with some children right now, with some young adult right now, is different from the way that we used to lead with that in the past, right? So I think it's a great example of how how society is evolving and progressing, looking in our young people, right? And it's a reflex all the movements that we have facing, right? I think that revolution are very uncomfortable. Evolution movements are very uncomfortable, right? In the beginning, we don't think that, oh, come on, what's happening? And then we start complaining. And then at some point, it's the new reality, right? Yeah, there's nothing we can do about that. So if you don't adjust to that, we have to move away.
Yeah, but there are, I think, let's say something, that there are things that are horrible, like you see a retrocess or like music, for example. You see people going to the radio or programs on TV or in the internet and saying bad things, like just profanity, low class, low language, low everything. But I think it's a way of, it goes up to a point, as you said, nobody's gonna pay attention anymore to that, and people are gonna say, "Oh my God, what is that?" Right? So the person that does that and go to a music program and think they are doing, "Oh my gosh, look how I am." But this is gonna see, it's gonna be one time maybe, or two, maybe half a dozen times. But I think the next time, no, thank you, okay? Because if you don't receive anything, if you don't add anything, people at some point they don't think very much of that. We know that already. And I think in all senses, like false ideas, bad stuff, and at the same time with science. Recently, I think in Europe, somebody was acclimated from the countryside of Brazil, and a poor guy, simple, modest, not simple, modest, that was brilliant. And they asked him, how did you achieve these results? He said, observing. And he did it naturally. Nobody told him, he himself. So I think it may perhaps have a lot of people coming from different parts of the world being natural scientists, and proving this and this and that with simplicity, with a humbleness, like, well, that's what it is. And this is like one more jump, one more acquisition
One more
to
step.
humanity. So, nothing was established probably in a college, a university that is like renowned, but not taking the merit of good schools. No, it's just sometimes people are natural.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And it goes, but it doesn't have that, how do you say, the normal labels, or it just like the kids.
Yeah,
So,
it's natural.
yeah.
Yes.
I just want to make sure what I'm thinking is what I got from the talk. You need intellectual development and moral development to ascend or progress. But from your talk and from your example of Capella, it looks like it's typical that the intellectual growth happens first and morality lags behind. So now I'm not so frustrated.
No,
Because
it's
whenever
exact.
I look at it like,
It's exactly like this.
things that are happening in government
Yes.
or things in industry country or in the environment, you go, what's going on? These people are smart. Aren't they calculating the effect on other people? But, and so since we've traditionally turned to religions to do the morality part in families, are there any tips from Capella or these civilizations that have made it to regeneration? What finally gets the morality up to the intellectual?
Well, I think it's put in practice what we learn intellectually, put in practice. Because, as I said, if we learn a lot of things and we don't use it in favor of our progress, it's useless, right? So sometimes all the knowledge that we achieve is in order to look someone superior, someone better than others, but we are not using it. So we have to put in practice.
I think pain.
Yeah, pain.
Yeah, that's it,
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, somebody, you are a famous scientist, and you are paid to say that this and this and that is like this, like half of the world say, maybe, perhaps, who knows? I don't know. No, but it is because he got millions to say that.
Yeah.
Then his son or daughter or father or mother died of that specific idea. Aren't you going to change? I say, oh my God, what did I do? So I think
Yeah.
I'm giving a fictitious example here.
Yes, see.
But how many people, like there is, I think Paula brought it, this question, if I'm mistaken, forgive me. A guy made, I don't know how many abortions. Like he promoted like millions because he believed that that was what it was supposed to be. And then one day something happened and it said, nowadays he's the one that goes and say no to abortion. So not being here favoring or against whoever did it, I'm not judging people. I'm just thinking he was a doctor and nowadays he changed his mind. You know, how many scientists went there and say, no, because this is like this, and they almost killed because of that idea. And then down the road, somebody proves the opposite. But it was good because from the discussion came the light. So I think that's why we have to be very flexible.
Yeah.
To think, or not flexible, but open, like
Open,
Julio always
yes.
say, think about in between questions, there are more questions. So what this study does is like try to have a more open view of the problems, the solutions for the problems.
Yes. As Julie used to say, trying to avoid the mono idea, right?
The mono idea, exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So let's think about our dear Master and Jesus and brother Jesus here among us. Let's be grateful for this opportunity to be here, reflecting a little bit about the teachings of this wonderful doctrine that he promised us to send as a consoler, and he effectively sent us to help us to better understand his teachings and his message without mistakes, without misinterpretations, in order to improve our intellectual progress, and showing us our responsibility of make the best use of the intellectual progress in order to improve our morality by the process of identification of the negative traits of our personality, trying to eliminate them and making some room to the virtues that were graved in us by God when created us all simple and ignorant spirits. Thank you, God. Thank you, Jesus, for the opportunity of having met Spiritism and for the fact that its principles make so much sense to us. May we make the most of it, trying to understand it, these principles, and putting them in practice in our lives in order to get a little bit closer to your model and your example. May we feel your presence in each difficult moment of our lives, mainly during these times that we are living in society, involved in such a negative psychosphere. May we never doubt of the existence of God and that providence taking care of all of us, their sons and daughters. Allows Jesus that all the good vibrations produced here and that we can feel right now can reach all of our brothers and sisters who are in need of light, hope, and consolation. And so be it.